Here we are, the Geoff Banks Christmas message. 2015 had some controversial moments. Fast forward to the St Ledger at Donny and another incident. A race first won by Simple Verse, then awarded to the runner-up by the stewards, only for Simple Verse to be reinstated weeks later after an appeal. What happened on that day? I mean, who won that day? Bookies, punters, nobody?
Oh, well, the bookies were the clear losers because they paid out on the favourite. And so the bookies were the clear losers. And what was interesting about that particular case was, again, but this was an interpretation of the rules. This was an interpretation of the rules. And if one looks at cases like at Sandown that was highlighted on UK racing, I can't remember the name of the horse, but I do remember the incident where a horse that finished second in a race, who had no gap whatsoever, and who manufactured a gap in the final furlong at Sandown to such an extent that the jockey on the one of the horses that was going backwards was nearly put over the Sandown rail. It was a highly dangerous manoeuvre. That particular horse was allowed to keep his second place. But that particular incident was a clear case in point where the horse was allowed to keep second despite causing major interference on the point of dangerous riding. And yet, in the Simple Verse case, which was also, funnily enough, the same senior snipe, Paul Barton, was involved in that decision, they made the decision that although Simple Verse was clearly clearly had won the race on merit, had won the race on merit, that they were going to turn around that result, which cost betting and racing an awful lot of money. And it was rather inevitable that once Shape had announced that he was going to appeal the decision, that they were going to turn it round. So this was a case of, no consistency in the rules in regard to Simple Verse. And it's my strong belief that it is overdue in British racing to have the stewards centralised, a centralised panel of stewards being more cost effective, would be more consistent, would consist only of professional stewards, and that's a key point. And therefore they would always, instead of having like the decisions of the Doncaster stewards and the decisions of the Ascot stewards, or the Sandown stewards being different, for different occasions or different strokes, you would have at least a consistency because you would have a much smaller panel of stewards making a decision, and they would always make the same decisions. One thing going forward though is I would like to see a revision in the rules whereby there are more calls of dangerous riding, where the stewards would be prepared in clear contravention rules, where a jockey knowingly and deliberately bashes his way out and causes in order to manufacture a gap for that horse to be removed. And I just think that when a jockey knowingly makes a decision like that during the course of the race, we're not talking about a Lord Windermere example where he drifts across and causes interference. We're not talking about that. That's a horse that wins clearly on merit, wins Gold Cup. What we're talking about is a situation where, in the Simple Verse case, where the jockey knowingly forces a gap. Yeah. And I think in such circumstances, they should be turfed out.
There was a TV series that you and I both watched, Britain at the Bookies.
It was dreadful, and I told the producer, Emma, who made the series, that I thought was absolutely dreadful. She actually asked me to appear on the show, and it turned out to be an advert for problem gamblers. That was all it was. It was one-sided. It highlighted, it didn't talk, for example, it was talking about dog racing, which is in decline. It's a fantastic sport, it's in decline. They don't talk about the joys of ownership of dog racing, the joys of people who go dog racing and love it as a sport. And I love watching dog racing. I think it's a fun sport, it's a fun night out, it's fun to have a bet. If you just have a fiver on a dog, it's great fun. And they didn't talk about any of that side. They just basically found themselves an owner who had done his boots with whichever bookmaker it was, and made a big deal of that. Then they find themselves people in betting shop who empty their lives into these properties. Now, I'm not a fan of these properties, but that was what the show was all about. It didn't show bookmaking and racing in a balanced light, and many people do get a lot of fun and enjoyment from their gambling. You know, I mean, I have a drink. It's not illegal. I enjoy my drink. I'll have a drink in life. Some people smoke. You know, some people have a lot of sex. These are all our vices in life, and gambling is one of them. And if people enjoy gambling, and if they gamble responsibly, I know that terrible phrase, but if they do gamble responsibly with a responsible bookmaker, there should be nothing wrong with that firm. And for the BBC basically to come out with a programme that just highlighted bookmakers as just bad people and gamblers as all problem gamblers it bore no parallel to real life or people's real enjoyment of gambling.
True, well said. You've banged on this season, in the flat season, about, I don't know, Aidan O'Brien constantly withdrawing Glen Eagles because of the state of the ground. But if you owned that horse, you wouldn't want it run on the wrong surface, would you?
No, I know the owner very well. He's one of the nicest fellows in racing, Michael Tabor, a lovely fellow. But Aidan O'Brien, who is afforded, I mean, I heard lots of things talked about Aidan O'Brien. Clearly Aidan O'Brien is a great trainer. But the reality is, if you give Richard Hannon the budget that Aidan O'Brien has got, and if you give Richard Hannon a diet of £350,000 horses as opposed to £50,000 horses, he's going to produce a lot more gold for his owners than he's capable of doing right now. Now, Aidan O'Brien made an absolute Horlicks of Glen Eagles, an absolute Horlicks. He made a nonsense of that horse's progression through the season. He was given a number of opportunities, in particular the Sussex Stakes, if I remember rightly, an opportunity to run the horse on good to firm ground, bordering on firm ground, with a forecast that was excellent. Ended up, I believe, withdrawing again at York after that, and almost being bullied, if you like, which was by people like me, no doubt, by people like me, into running that horse at Ascot on ground that was probably the least favourable of the lot. And the only person, I mean, I remember, I think it was Gordon Elliott who came. Was it Gordon Elliott who came out in support of Aidan, saying that it was just people having things to say, they don't know anything about training? I say to people like Gordon, we're quite entitled to criticise. He made a complete balls up of that horse this year. A fantastic horse. It should have been out racing in front of the general public. It should have been out racing against its peers and achieving a milestone in its career and achieving great status, instead of which nobody will remember this horse.
Were Golden Horn yours, surely you too would have retired the star of the flat season and sent him off to stud now? Or do you think he should have been kept going another year?
I think Mr. Oppenheimer doesn't want for a few quid in life. One of the things I don't understand about great horses, and don't forget, by the way, the pressure that people like me put on John Gosden and Anthony Oppenheimer after the Ascot withdrawal, where 30,000 people turn up to see the horse, and halfway through the morning they suddenly decide that they're not going to run in the King George. It's just poor behaviour. But at the end of the day, people will turn around and say, look, because the result was that Golden Horn, in the middle of his season, became a little bit of a hodgepodge. He goes to York, he gets beaten by the filly, Geoff Smith's horse, and he gets beaten by that. He shouldn't have got beaten by that, but he turns out he came back to his mark and won a fantastic arc and a great ride under Frankie, as we know. So he restored his season, and obviously he's a phenomenal racehorse. What I don't understand is, these leading owners, they've got packets of money. Where are their balls? This pervasive attitude of what we have to do in life is make sure that our horses get to the end of their careers with 1-1-1-1-1 against their name. Well, Golden Horn, for example, proved that he could have a 2 against his name, and still people will talk about him as being one of the greatest racehorses that British racing has ever produced. So it's time for the owners to show some balls. and you don't need the money. So why retire them at 3 years of age? I mean, just because you're going to get, fine, you're going to get 100 grand a pop for covering a mare, and you're only going to get 600 grand for winning the King George or 700 grand. So, you know, in a week, you almost cover the expenses. But you've got enough money in life. You don't need any more money in life, Anthony. You don't need any more money. So, you know, why don't just race them? Race them on to a 4-5. What's the problem?
Jesus. Let's try and explain in language everyone can understand, what is an authorised betting partner?
Well, I'm an authorised betting partner, for example, because I am a UK operator. I also hold a business in Ireland, but anybody that bets in Ireland, that bets in the United Kingdom, a UK citizen who bets with me on UK horse racing, I will pay full levy, 10% I believe it is, 10% of whatever I earn out of UK horse racing to the levy board, which goes to racing. And that anybody that does that is officially an authorised betting partner of racing. And it's a good thing to have a system whereby if a bookmaker or a betting company is using racing as a product, then of course they should pay a levy. It's morally right that they do. I understand the position of companies, good companies such as Corals, for example, of sort of saying, well, we pay a great deal of levy anyway, but they've got business in Gibraltar, and they don't pay any levy on that business in Gibraltar. And I understand both sides of the coin. Obviously, racing people who don't understand bookmaking, who think that bookmakers make money out of every race in the fiscal calendar, and yes, they do. They think that racing is easy and that bookmakers drive around in Rolls Royces and all this kind of stuff. It's a fiction, of course. Many bookmakers don't make it through the year. But Corals will argue that they pay a great deal to racing already from their bricks and mortar empire, and that they also sponsor a race book. And the racing people will argue that, well, that sponsorship value doesn't equal anything like what Coral should pay as an operator. So these are the two sides of the associated betting partner. So this is the system. 60 or 70% of British race sponsorship is bookmakers, and that's not a healthy situation. So it's a sensible business move for GM and Bazalgette to try to widen the sponsorship cake, and also, of course, to turn around to bookmakers and ask them all to pay appropriate levy.
Fancy meeting you?
Yeah!
Look at that dirty old man. And if you're Ladbrokes, for example, and you don't want to pay, but Betfair and Paddy Power pay, and get all the benefits of being an associated, an approved betting partner, you're going to sign. You're going to sign because you don't want to be left behind.
On his head. Similar price for number 2, the Barley Island. 11-2 for.
How's it going so far today?
Losing.
The old Phillies man knows enjoyed a good couple of days.
7-1 into 9-2, second race. Bad result.
The retirement of Rock on Ruby.
One thing that concerns me about racetracks, which I would like them to review, is to have more areas for their established members, for their long-established members, to be segregated from the yayas, the drunken hordes that we see on a Saturday. I mean, they're paying for a member's ticket in advance and a car park, space and everything else like that, and a separate area. And then the racetrack goes and sells that area to a bunch of beer-toting, plastic glass holding yayas. And if I was a member at a nice racetrack, I wouldn't want to be stuck in a ring with them.
Anybody got any money? Are you over 18? You're a liar. Yes, sir.
I'll have 10 to win on 2, please.
10 to win 2 says he's over 18. Thank you. Move on.
You're advocating a sort of riff-raff area and a non-riff-raff.
Yes. Yes.
It's a bit snobbish, isn't it?
No.
Oh, snobbishness is
Really-
a problem with racing.
Not at all. Racing has always had a class system, though.
It has.
It's always had a
Yeah,
class
that's the
system.
problem.
There's always been a members, there's always been a royal enclosure, there's always been a tassels, and there's always been a silvering. And you know, we don't live in a communist society. Britain isn't a communist society. It is a class structure, and we must to accept that. There will be people out there also saying, oh well, you know, he's a snob and he's this and that. You know,
But
it shouldn't be so.
but hang
It's
on.
a fact.
A snobbish attitude does pervade in certain quarters. There are trainers at Newmarket who don't think you should have. If somebody coming through the turnstile at a racecourse doesn't know some basics, then I heard one trainer say, "Well, we don't want that sort here anyway, so don't let them in. What does it matter?" But
Well,
that's a backward
this is why we
attitude.
are different. This is why we have different enclosures, different strokes for different folks. So if some people want to turn up in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, they will go in the enclosure where there'll be lots of people wearing jeans and t-shirt, and they'll feel comfortable in that environment. That's their choice. And for those that want to be suited and booted and look very smart and take their girlfriends out, spend a lot of money on them and everything else like that, they will choose the members' enclosures. But there's nothing wrong with that system. I don't see what the problem is.
Hurry up, you grungy lot, quick! A goal day! Get your money out!
Cheer up, Geoff.
Get your money out!
Cheer up.
Get your money out!
10 each motive.
You having a good day, Geoff?
Never won so much money. Had to buy a new mattress by the end of the day.
Yeah, 10-2, 10-6.
I don't want your pint, I want your money. I don't drink that.
See you, mate.
Nice.
All the best.